Hey, I got an idea. What if I make a game that's a cross between Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon, Forager, Littlewood, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? Huh? Wait, what was that last one? Hello everyone, and welcome to my first indie devlog video about my upcoming game, Nanoplanet. I hope you'll stay along for the ride as I track my progress through this YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to find out when I upload next. Before I jump into what this game is about, let me give you a quick introduction to myself. My name is Zach Marvin. I'm a husband, a dad, and a developer. I'm a professional software engineer by day and a game dev by night. My professional experience includes building software applications for the government and organizations like the Air Force, Army, Navy, and even NASA. My game dev journey though started 4 years ago when I developed my first game for iOS. Since then I've made great strides in my programming abilities and I've made multiple games using multiple types of software including Unity. Unity is what I'll be building this game in. Now let's dive into what this game is all about. I've always been interested in top-down pixel art games like the old Pokemon games or Zelda games. I also like the recent hits like Stardew Valley, Forager, and Littlewood. And another passion of mine is space. Anything space. Space books, space movies, space TV, space science, astronomy, anything space related, I'm probably interested in it. You'll notice this if you look back at any of my previous games I've created, majority of them are centered around space. So naturally I wanted to make a top-down pixel art farming life sim game centered in space, kind of like Stardew Valley. I came up with this idea a few months ago and I began making concept art for it. I really wanted the aesthetic to be similar to Forager and Littlewood, simple but cute. So I began drawing and I'm pretty happy with how the artwork is coming along and the palette choice. I've also already thought out the entire plot for the game and the various NPCs that are going to be included. I'll dive deeper into this later in a devlog, but to sum it up real quickly, you're part of a 7-person crew that left Earth due to it being destroyed by climate change. You're on your way to a foreign planet that supposedly is habitable, but when you crash land there, you have to wake up your various members from the cryo chambers that they're in through various quests, and you soon realize that the planet is not as habitable as you once thought. After some exploration, you find an alien species hidden in the caves, and you find out that they also took poor care of their planet, causing their climate to be bad as well. The oxygen levels on the planet have plummeted, the alien species retreated into the caves where the oxygen levels are higher, and then you come up with an idea on how to save their planet by building this contraption that repairs the atmosphere. During this time, you'll only be able to plant plants inside the biodomes that you build, and you'll have to wear your astrosuit anytime you go outside. But once you've completed the main storyline, you'll no longer have to wear your astrosuit when you go outside, and you'll be able to plant anywhere on the planet, and the alien species is going to be allowed to roam free all across the planet and they won't be tucked into their caves anymore. So essentially, it's a very similar concept to Stardew Valley, but instead of taking care of a farm and the antagonist of the story being the JoJo Mart, you're taking care of a planet and the antagonist is climate change. I have a lot of Easter eggs playing with this and I'm really excited to flesh out this story. But before I get there, there's a lot of gameplay that needs to be implemented. And by a lot, I mean a lot. Here is a glimpse of the Trello storyboard and all the tasks I have planned. Since I started playing in this game, I've experimented with different art styles and prototypes. I had a 2D pixel perfect prototype where the player is locked to a movement grid. I've had a 3D low poly prototype, and briefly I even had a 2.5D prototype. After playing with all these ideas, I decided that 2D pixel art was the way I wanted to go and it felt the best. But I wasn't going to make everything pixel perfect and locked to a pixel by pixel frame. The reason for this is to allow freedom of movement for the player and the items that they use. I feel that this is a fun approach while still being nostalgic to the older pixel art games. After deciding which art style and which perspective and how many dimensions I wanted the game to be in, I began implementing it. The first thing I needed to implement was a tile map. I needed grounds, grass, and walls. The wall set could use some work, but I'll work on it later. The next thing I needed was a player. After the player was in the game, I needed to be able to move around. The next logical choice after that was to implement blasters. Anyways, so I started blasting.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
And then I thought to myself, you know what would go good with blasters? Lightsabers. So I drew this up immediately and added it to my game. The animations could use a little work, but how freaking awesome to have lightsabers in my game. After implementing this, I felt really good about the idea to not make everything pixel perfect. This allows the player 360 degrees of freedom and where they can swing the lightsaber or shoot their blasters in any direction they want. The next thing I needed was something to shoot at, and it clicked. Instead of having the players use old rudimentary tools to harvest their crops, why not let them use the lightsaber and the blasters to blast and chop everything down? After quickly adding a tree into my game, I was able to set up the hitboxes to allow the player to chop or shoot them down. This felt satisfying. I somehow managed to turn a Stardew Valley game into a Jedi Stormtrooper bullet hell. After all that, everything still felt a little flat. I came up with a bright idea to add lighting to the game. After a quick tutorial on how to convert to Unity's universal render pipeline, I had lights. Well, everything was black at first, but after swapping some materials and playing around with the conversions and adding a global light, I could see again. Now, I decided to implement a day and night cycle. After some research on how long days are and how long nights are on average, I came up with this animation curve to simulate the intensity levels for the brightness in one day, or in space, one sol. After hooking up this animation curve and a small script to change the intensity variable of the global light, we had night. Okay, great, but now I couldn't see at night. I needed a light around the player so that the player always knew what was in their immediate surroundings. This worked great, except that when it was daytime, the global light combined with the player light caused way too much brightness, so I had to include a calculation that made sure the combined levels were never larger than the max intensity. This looked great, but you know what else has lights? Blasters and lightsabers. I added a spotlight to the instantiated blaster bullets, and this looked awesome, but the lightsaber was a little more tough. The way the game object was set up, the spotlight would be centered on the player and not the lightsaber, so I tried using 2D sprite lights. This worked well when the player wasn't swinging, but during a swing the light from the lightsaber wouldn't move and it just didn't look right. I tried to manually adjust the sprite that the sprite light was based off of during runtime, but it turns out the 2D sprite light component is based off of a sprite cookie light and it's baked in and can't be changed at runtime. I eventually decided to use a freeform light that allowed me to shape it off center from the player, which would allow for it to rotate with the lightsaber as it should. I think this looks pretty good, but I'll probably make another pass on it later. The last thing I needed was sound. After snagging some lightsaber audio and blaster audio off the asset store, it was looking and sounding great. My game now has working lightsabers and blasters that let you chop down trees, and I freaking love it. That's all I have time for in today's devlog, but if you enjoyed this content, please hit the like and subscribe button. It would help me out a lot. If you have any thoughts, comments, or suggestions, let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you want to see some behind the scenes footage of this game during development, be sure to follow me on Twitter or join my Discord channel, where there'll be polls, discussions, and more game dev content. Links are in the description below. Until next time, have a great day.